Is there an area of your life where you feel like you get a degree of growth, a degree of success, only to drop back down to the level you were at previously? That's because you have a set baseline, and to make a change to that, you need to increase your baseline. Today we're going to talk about some of the ways you can make that happen. I'm Ian Hawkins, and this is Sport is Life. The purpose of sport, as I see it, is to see your vision become a reality. Find your voice, create strong connections, and learn to trust your body. You would have probably heard that stat about the huge percentage of lottery winners who end up squandering that money within a very short period of time, year or two. What happens is that people have a default level of success, default level of financial value that they value themselves. And if they don't lift their mindset to be someone who has that money, then they will find a way to come back to their level. And this is true for all different areas of your life. Happiness, success, relationships. You have a default level, and you might have fluctuations up and down from that level. But in the main, you come back to your baseline unless you do the work to raise that baseline. Because what often happens is you have those moments where you go, oh yeah, I'm flying, but then suddenly you crash back down and you can't work out why. It's because you're defaulting. And there might be those times where you fall into a hole. Just got to remind yourself you'll get back to parity soon enough. But if you want to raise that line, if you want to raise your baseline, if you want greater success, greater financial security, greater health, happiness, quality of relationships, everything, it's about raising that line. And we do that, changing your mindset, removing some of those old patterns, going through a period of growth by learning more, self-awareness, as many things as you can about how you value yourself. Because you look at the financial one, if you don't value yourself enough to not only receive that amount of money, but also be able to keep it and increase it, then you'll default. And have a think about, like, you might have heard those stories and you go, there's no way that happened to me. Well, there's a great quote from Les Brown that said, along the lines of, if you want to be a millionaire, or if you want to have vast amounts of money, you better get a millionaire mindset. Otherwise, you'll just find a way to lose it. So it's the same for anything that you're working on. How do you raise that baseline? So some things that you can action straight away is getting clear on what that future looks like. What is it you're actually working towards? Because unless you've got some sort of plan, well, then you're going to, again, default back to whatever the existing plan has been. So get some real clarity on that vision. Get some detail around it. Get some process around it. So that's your first step. Then it's some self-awareness on some of those patterns that unfold where you find yourself defaulting back to that current level. So maybe you've had a level of success. Let's use health for an example. You've been on a run of good fitness, but then suddenly it all drops off the cliff. Maybe you get injured, maybe you get sick, maybe something happens that you need to dedicate time and energy towards. You stop the exercise and then the pattern continues. So self-awareness is the first step, starting to recognize the patterns. Where do these patterns show up? How often do they show up? Is it the same or very similar every time I have these setbacks, when I seem to come back down to that same place? Because self-awareness will allow you to start identifying where your leaks are, where your traps are, the things that are keeping you stuck. And then once you see where those things are happening, then you can start putting some things in place to address those. to address the leaks, to address the traps, to come up with some better solutions so that you can then change what needs to change. And when you can identify what needs to change, then you can start finding solutions. More often than not, what you think is the problem is not the problem. Again, if we come back to the money thing, you think you haven't got enough money to make more money. It's not from a lack of resources. It's a mindset restriction, a belief system, a question of how much you value yourself. So we've got getting that clear vision. We've got that self-awareness about where are some of those things. And then it's, okay, how do I come up with a solution? I've got the awareness. I can see the traps. Then I can start building a plan. And you also need a circuit breaker. Because when you see the things that are happening, that loop will continue unless you can find a circuit breaker. And a circuit breaker might be having some external help with whatever you're going through. It might be that you need to change something that you're doing. It could be that you need to have some sort of assistance to help you upgrade your mindset. For me, my first foray into personal growth was very much from me chasing financial independence. And the very first thing that I learned once I started learning from someone who was teaching other people to change that was how important it was to upgrade my mindset, to change my mindset, to change my value of how much belief I had, how much I valued myself, and how much I was capable of bringing into my life. Once you raise your baseline, then when those setbacks happen, you'll default back to this new improved baseline. You won't drop back down again. So find a way, follow these steps that I've given you. That's your starting point. And then, as always, then be on alert for opportunities that come your way once you've got these 3 steps in place. You've taken the time to listen to this whole episode. Now it's time to take action. Commit to one thing you've learned today and make it happen. And to avoid any obstructions, join the Sport is Life movement by clicking on the link in the show notes.